Indian households own gold worth 150 lakh crore.
Indian households have more money than the World Bank Reserve. And I would argue that actually more than gold, people tell me ki just put money in it.
240 million FD customers are there, and there are 55 lakh searches happen on FD. It's most favorite asset class of India. Everybody has heard of it. Only 1% of the FDs, 1% of these 240 million FDs that exist earn more than 8.5%. The main source of earning money in the initial years of career is through career, is not through investment. Okay, let's start. Be gentle, Edul.
This is not coffee with Karan Saurabh. So hey folks, I am Edul, co-founder of Mudrex, and welcome to the show. Today we've got Saurabh and Manthan from Stable Money and Gullak with us. It's going to be a fun show. We're going to talk a lot about gold, FDs, and many things in investing. And I hope you guys enjoy it. So welcome to the show, Saurabh. Welcome, Manthan.
Thanks, Edul.
Great to have
Thanks
you
for
here.
inviting.
Yeah, super excited.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. So let's start off with intros. And instead of me doing that for you, I would love for you guys to do it by yourself. So, sorry, why don't we start off with you?
Okay.
And I call Saurabh sorry since ages because we've studied together, have spent like the last 15, 16 years knowing each other. So yeah, sorry, why don't we start off with you?
Before, so I'll go reverse. So Stable Money is something that we started 12, 14 months back with the idea of building a fixed income investment platform for Indians. Then before this, I was working at Navi, did a couple of roles initially, chief of staff to Sachin, great experience. We did a couple of acquisitions as part of that, and mutual fund was one of that acquisitions. Then went on to leading Navi Mutual Fund, where the first task was to set up the vision for the next 10 years, that how the mutual fund will be. And we decided we want to be the vanguard of India. So with that vision, we started Navi and everything around the passive investments. Before moving to Navi was with Swiggy. 2.5 years again, that's my general ideal sweet spot, where the major role was to look into growth and scale Swiggy from 30 cities to 500 plus cities. Before that was in Bombay, when Edul was also in Bombay. I think started my first venture, Truce, which was in agri-tech. Procuring from farmers, delivering it to the restaurants, similar to what Hyperpure, much before Hyperpure. Again, that did that for 2 years, and before that 4.5 years with the first job, Fractal Analytics is what I did, and yeah, college where Edul and I studied together.
So yeah, will it be fair to say that the Stable Money was born out of all the learnings in Navi?
No, I think a lot of recency effect of towards the end of Navi.
Okay.
Where actually when I left Navi, my idea was to get into a SaaS business.
Okay.
I started exploring a lot of ideas, and then just one fine day got the notes of my Navi days, where at Navi, we used to talk to a lot of customers, or her cheese, we used to write it down in a diary. And that's what I started reading. I still have that, which talks about the customers and the pain area. And I realize that large asset class is still fixed income. But everybody's focused on mutual fund and equities, right? So why don't we? And that's where it started. Spoke to Harish. Yeah. But actually it was not fintech.
I remember having a 1 hour long walk with you in the streets of HSR, where we were discussing this SaaS wala thing, right? Where we were saying कि tools बनाते हैं mutual fund distributors को distribute करने के लिए, उनके लिए SaaS product देते हैं.
Yes.
That was a very interesting conversation, that one as well. Great. So Manthan, let's talk a bit about you and about Gullak, and of course all history that you can have.
Sure. So first a quick intro, right? I'm Manthan Shah. I'm founder of Gullak Money. We are a gold investment app where users can get up to 16% returns on gold, right? So background is I'm born and brought up in Ahmedabad, right? Come from a middle class family. Dad is a businessman. Mom is homemaker. Did my engineering in Ahmedabad, Gandhinagar, nearby. Worked for 2 years in a startup in Ahmedabad. Then did my master's from IIT Kharagpur.
Yeah.
And for my internship during that time, I interned at JustPay in 2015. So just for context, JustPay is a payments platform.
JustPay was what, like a 10-15
So
member team then?
that Justpay was a 10-member team.
Yeah.
When I was an intern when
Yeah.
I joined Justpay, right? Was very fortunate to see the entire journey, right? From 10 member to 500 member. When I left, we were doing 20 million transactions every day,
Correct.
right? And crazy journey. We've seen a lot of ups, lot of downs. Very, very great learning, right? I think one very interesting thing we did at Justpay was in 2016, right after demonetization, we built Bheem app. If you guys know Bheem,
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
Justpay built that entirely, designed and developed by Justpay for NPCI.
Yeah. No, I'm actually very interested what Justpay does, right? With this, with Namma Yatri
Ah,
and a lot of these things. Yeah,
it's very
amazing.
interesting how they get the opportunity to build out these large, valuable apps.
So, some context is basically when this opportunity came, we were already building a UPI. So, UPI hackathon happened in 2015, right? We were already building some product for a bank, and this opportunity came. We have to build this product right after demonetization.
Correct.
You have to build this in 3 weeks.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding. 3 weeks. And we were a 15-member team. Entire team, I think 24 hours, 2 shifts. Like I'll go sleep, some other guy will come. We built that in 3 weeks. 10 million downloads in 10 days.
Yeah.
Crazy. Like we wouldn't have even ever imagined, right? And then I think was very, very, very fortunate to see and play a crucial part in the entire UPI journey.
Yeah.
Like we power Google Pay, Cred, Amazon. Justpay does a lot of. Justpay today does 100 million transactions every day. 80% in UPI.
Insane.
So that's the Justpay journey, right? And from last 2 years, been building Gullak money. It's our vision is to democratize wealth creation, right? I think currently our main product is it's called Gold Plus, where users can get up to 16% returns on gold. And yeah, I think the struggle is on.
Struggle is always on. Great. So, then let's also talk about Gullak, right? Justpay is a payments company, right? That does B2B stuff. And Gullak is a direct to consumer, like a B2C company that does gold investments. Both of them could not be like further apart, right? Like, how did this happen? Like, how did you even think of starting Gullak?
So I think one context important to this is the way we saw UPI changed in India, right? Bheem was the beginning, and we saw like my own hometown. For the first 2 years of UPI in Ahmedabad, people will not accept UPI, and now they won't accept anything other than
Yes.
UPI, right? So we saw that journey, and we knew that now at least the one thing that has happened is everybody has a Bheem, a PhonePe, a Google Pay, Paytm. They are transacting, right? Our vision was that we wanted to democratize wealth creation, right? See, our own journey. So, by the way, I am a Gujarati Jain, right? One of my co-founders is a Marwari Jain. Through our own journey,
पैसा बनाना खून में.
through our own journey, we realized through lots of mistakes that the best way to create wealth is 12 to 15% CAGR long term.
Yeah.
बहुत mistakes की, penny stocks किए, ये किया, वो किया, but finally learned the hard way that this is how you create wealth. And we wanted to figure out that this should be democratized, right? It shouldn't be this hard. It shouldn't take so much time to learn this, right? So we went on, started doing user research and realized that large part of India. So we wanted to solve this for 200 million Indians, right? And we started doing user research. These are user research of serious savers. So महीने का 10,000 20,000 save करते हैं.
Okay.
These are not some random guys,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. But by
they are-
default, मैंने कहा 10,000 save करते मतलब by default they are in like the top 5% ish people
top
in the
5%, top 10%, right? I think. So what we realize is they are still investing in 5 to 6% asset class.
Yeah.
Right? And we realize that 6% में your money doubles every 12 years, your 12% पे your money doubles every 6 years, but this awareness was not there. So we said that cost of financial ignorance shouldn't be this high.
Correct.
Right? So we started doing user research. We started talking to these users and realized. So our first idea, by the way, during our user research was index fund. We wanted to build an index fund company. We said index fund is the best way to create wealth.
By far.
Correct. सब दिमाग लगा छोड़ दो, top 50 companies of India खत्म. And we went on to the user research and we realized two major challenges. एक, risk appetite is low. Though he's a serious saver, I think you were also talking about that, right? Risk appetite is low and financial awareness is low. Risk appetite low है वो हमें ये समझ आया कि because they are not earning as much, they are not in Bangalore, not aware, their natural ability to take risks is low. Second is the importance of knowing compound interest के benefits, right? 12% versus 6% at 24 years, it is like 1 लाख का 4 लाख होगा या 16 लाख होगा.
Correct.
वो awareness ही नहीं है, right? So we said कि ये तो नहीं चलेगा. We started getting these questions कि क्या होगा अगर गिर गया. हमने बोला यार टॉप 50 कंपनीज कैसे गिरी? नहीं गिर गया तो क्या गारंटी है? कोई नहीं ये वो. And then we started talking about gold and it worked. So we launched gold. Right? Because हमारा goal तो यही है.
You don't need to fight when you're saying gold or for that matter FD. You don't need to fight this battle.
It was immediately. So the only problem I had to solve is why you should invest in Gullak. There I had to solve 2 problems. इंडेक्स फंड क्या है, तुम्हें क्यों करना चाहिए, और मेरे प्लेटफॉर्म पे आके करो. इट्स वेरी बिग, वेरी हार्ड प्रॉब्लम. सो वी डिडंट इवन बिल्ड दैट. यूजर रिसर्च में बच गए हम, राइट?
करेक्ट.
सो वी लॉन्च गोल्ड एंड देन वी डबल डाउन ऑन गोल्ड इन आवर विजन के ज़्यादा रिटर्न देना है. सो वी फिगर्ड आउट कि ये गोल्ड जो पड़ा है, हाउ डू वी गेट यूजर्स मोर रिटर्न्स, एंड दैट्स हाउ गोल्ड प्लस वाज बॉर्न. एंड yeah, I think that's how the whole journey from B2B payments to investment happened.
Correct. So like,
but one important thing is, like you said, how did that change happen, right?
Yeah.
Beam was, I think, that shift where we first got a taste of B2C.
You got the
So
blind.
even though we didn't do distribution, but we got that taste कि यार B2C एक ऐप बनाने से what is the scale possible?
Correct.
क्या change possible and all that, and that we got that taste. And that plus our own learning of investments and all that took us here.
एक बार खून चख लिया तो मतलब you can never go back, right? तो मतलब by the way, I completely agree with that index fund philosophy, right? Like even at Mudrex when we do crypto, which is like insanely riskier perceived as compared to most other things, our thought process always is here, the best way to create wealth in anything for that matter is use that index strategy and invest for the longer run. नहीं तो कुछ नहीं होता है. But coming back to gold, like already 65% of Indians own gold in some way, shape, format or the other, right? And it is by far the most talked about product, at least in our parents' generation. Like, and for them, it's the number one advice that they give to you, right? कि यार FD में पैसा डाल दो, gold में पैसा डाल दो, right? So let's first talk about gold. It seems on the surface that it's highly competitive. So did you perceive the same? Why did you choose to enter in this market? What opportunity you saw that made you believe कि you would be able to take the product out to more folks?
Why did we choose this is what I said, right? कि
Why
vision
was
was
clear?
wealth creation.
हाँ.
अब वही product was, there's a concept called familiar surprise. My
Yeah.
co-founder keeps talking about it, right? If you want something to be widely adopted, it has to have a surprise element, but it has to be familiar,
Yeah.
right? So gold was that category कि हम वहाँ पे हमने सोचा we'll innovate. So that's
Yeah.
how gold happened, right? Now coming to
No, so I agree with the gold वाला part is very clear. But gold is of course very competitive. So for you it was obvious कि gold करना है. But फिर ये भी तो सवाल होगा ना कि how do you compete against everyone who is doing gold? Like for example, you're literally competing with the Tanishqs and the jewelers on the one end to like sovereign gold bonds on the other end with RBI. इतना बड़ा spectrum है. And तो thinking about like in gold choosing digital gold and then doing distribution, तो उसके बारे में थोड़ा बात करते हैं कि what was the surprise?
So surprise was this, right? This gold plus was surprise. So I'll tell you the entire journey, right? I think, like you said, gold became clear,
Yeah.
right? And the market is very big.
Correct.
We realized that this market is untapped and just opened up last 2 years because of UPI,
Yeah.
right? तो अब वो market के लिए कोई बना तो नहीं रहा, ठीक है? तो there is an opportunity. तो वहाँ घुसते हैं. अब घुसने के साथ ही you need differentiation, right? So one thing from coming from Gujarat and Maharashtra, we saw Rajasthan and all that कि ये gold leasing as a concept चलता है उधर,
Correct.
right? So idea was कि gold is already accepted if you can create a good differentiation with help of tech and innovate on top,
Correct.
right? And get users extra return, right? So then automatically users के लिए will become a no-brainer platform, right?
I think for me, when I think of Gullak from outside as a customer, right, सबसे सही चीज ये हुई कि they put a number on gold कि up to 16%. till date for me and for everybody, it was more like कि gold है, safe है, बढ़ता है.
Correct.
But if you ask कि ठीक है, in last 5 years you have been holding gold, कितना return मिला? I don't have a number. Nobody had a number. Our parents never had a number.
Correct.
They had some number कि when Saurabh you got married, it was 20,000. Now it is 60,000.
इतना सुनने मिलता है ना मेरे को ये तो कि शादी पे देखो 20-25-30 हजार था, अब 60 हो गया है.
Exactly. So that's what we know, but we don't know percentages, and it's been happening now. So they did a great job of putting a number to that.
Yeah.
Correct.
Ki you do gold, but this gold is giving you 16%. So I think for me that was, as a customer, was a game changer.
So
Okay, now I can put a number.
Yeah. I think there was a misconception also कि हाँ safe है 4-5% देता होगा.
Yeah.
You pick any investment period, any long term. Gold has given 11. Just one small fact, right?
When you say long term, it's 5 plus, 10 plus. What do you?
5 to 7 years,
Okay.
10 years.
Any 5 to 7 year rolling
period. Yeah, there is data available. You
Yeah.
pick any year, you will get that return. Simple fact, right? Nifty started in 1999, right? It was 890 from the Google data available, right? Nifty has given, I think, 13.7% CAGR
Yeah.
till today. ठीक है? From same time, gold was, I think, around that time was 4,200.
Yeah.
Gold has given around 12%.
Not bad.
ठीक है? So I think that means misconception also we wanted to solve, and then we said we innovate on top, we give 5% extra, then it beats even Nifty.
So you give 5% extra via the leasing part, right?
Yeah. So basically, to think of it this way, for a customer, right? Let's say if you invest 100 grams in gold, by the end of the year, you will have 105 grams.
Okay.
ठीक है? So 5 grams you got from Gold Plus, and gold price appreciation is additional, right? So the math that we explain and that clicks with users is, यार 8 साल रखा ना, 100 gram will become 150 gram. अब anybody, for example, Edul, you any gold investment that I am doing, logically, why would I keep it laying at 100 grams versus making it 150 grams? That was a pitch that we wanted to give. Should be no-brainer.
Correct.
Whatever let's say somebody is putting 20%, 10%, 30%, whatever amount of your portfolio you put, logically you would want that to also grow.
So is it, do you think it's a combination of first that you can buy gold in these very, very small quantities which you can't actually physically, and then this idea that leasing it out will give you extra returns, which मतलब physical gold के साथ तो कोई नहीं करता है ना, that's like the last resort. Like शादी के गहने कोई गिरवी नहीं रखता है, right?
Nice. So in the markets of Gujarat and Maharashtra and Rajasthan, this is the practice available for ultra HNIs.
Okay.
I have seen some of my distant family members do it, but the challenge there is, unless you have 3-4 kgs of gold, jeweler will not entertain
Exactly,
it,
right?
So we wanted to put a tech layer on top, innovate there and give. By the way, one misconception about digital gold also is, digital gold is not digital. You know that, right? Digital gold is physical gold stored in a secure locker, 100% insured.
Correct.
तुम्हारे घर पे लॉकर नहीं है, वो कहीं और है, 100% secured है. So that's the misconception. So digital gold is essentially physical gold. Now the gold is laying. How can you get the extra return?
Yeah. Very interesting.
Yeah.
Sorry, FD. So gold, like I understand. Let's also talk about FD. And I would argue that actually more than gold, people tell me ki just put money in an FD, put money in a bank. So and again, same problems. Like you are literally fighting with every bank from a competitive standpoint.
Right.
So how do you think of, like, what was the surprise, that familiar surprise taking Manthan's quote? Ki FD, of course, familiar, very popular, very well understood, and like what 103 trillion INR is in FDs across like 2.25 million FDs. It's insane. Like these numbers are just too huge to even comprehend. So what made you think of competing?
Familiarity, and I'll try and put some numbers around that, right? So 240 million like FD customers are there in India. Amount you mentioned, there are 55 lakh searches happen on FD. It's most favorite asset class of India. Everybody has heard of it.
Absolutely.
And when we started, we thought we'll start with a bond and think of a 12-13% kind of a bond, right? Because the ecosystem in which we stay, we believe, this is a very interesting product, right? But when we started looking at this, we realized that the familiarity is so important that when I tell FD to any customers, the only question that they ask is interest rate.
Yeah.
Then you don't have to explain FD. They have understood that product over the decades. But one very interesting factor and the surprise was only 1% of the FDs, 1% of these 240 million FDs that exist earn more than 8.5%. Right? And that should not be the case. Again, the same thing, right? There is a, information gap for all these customers that I will not earn higher returns on FD is the safest asset class that we have to do. And then we realize that a lot of these small finance bank, right, which are also insured by RBI. And one interesting thing that has happened with the Yes Bank fiasco that has happened, right? There is so much awareness about the insurance that is being provided by DICGC that everybody knows now there is a 5 lakh insurance that exists on FD.
Correct.
Now, if I compare a 5 lakh insurance, then a bank which is XYZ versus any popular bank is the same.
Just for everyone, you explain what the insurance is and how it works.
Yeah, so the insurance is in every bank with every PAN number, you have up to 5 lakh rupees principal plus interest insured.
So it's principal per interest both, not just principal.
Yeah,
I thought it was principal.
No, so it's principal plus interest that is insured. And if anything happens to the bank, this DICGC, which is regulated by RBI, will pay that money back to the customers. Obviously, for that, banks have to, per deposit, have to give some insurance amounts to RBI and everything. So that system is there.
Yeah.
But the awareness that has happened now with influencers, Yes Bank, and all of that, right? People are aware about this. Now, with that construct, with that lens, any bank is as safe as the most popular bank in India. Right? So why are people still earning 4.5%, 5.5% kind of a return versus they can earn 8.5%, 9% kind of a return? This 3-4% delta is a significant change, right? And currently it's only 1% of the people. So I said we bring that to the table. Interestingly, what has happened is a lot of these small finance bank which got licenses 4, 5, 6 years back have got into the system, started building the technologies and everything, and now they are also ready to go out in the market and start raising, start getting deposits. I think this was a very good tailwind that we had, that we got into the same time where fortunately the interest rates are high. The banks have the right banks have the right tech. And so that's some of these things fell in place for us a couple of months back, and then we said this is a good opportunity to start.
The thing that you are wanting to solve for is discovery, that the fact that these exist and you should be investing in them, because really there is no risk because the RBI is saying that they will insure it.
Yeah,
or like
exactly.
An entity that's trusted by the RBI saying that.
But there is still, like, even the biggest problem that we still have to solve. When somebody comes onto the platform and see Utkarsh Small Finance Bank or Shivalik Small Finance Bank or any other bank that we have or we will onboard, this is not very well known to the customers. Though we are talking RBI insurance and everything. So hence there is a lag in people coming onto the platform and doing an investment because they do their own research. How do we bridge that gap and short circuit that entire purchase cycle is the most important thing that we are still solving. Some of the things we have solved, some of the things we have to solve. But that's the real thing. Otherwise, people understand FD like they understand gold, and RBI insurance is that borrowed trust that you can use to do this.
Why do, like, just very simple question, why do different banks have different FD rates?
Oh, it's because the major reason why banks earn money is by lending. Right? And everybody now has a credit rate. Like, for example, if I have to think about, I have 100 rupees and I have to put in Reliance, I know the rate at which it will grow for the next 5-10 years will be much smaller than a small cap stock. Right? If I put in a penny stock, there is a high chances that it will become 100x, 200x. Right? There is a brand, there is a financial, there is a book, there is all of that. Right? So big banks take that benefit of a brand that with a SBI kind of a brand, they don't have to go out in the market and raise at 8 or 9%. They can easily raise at 5.5%. That is as good as a souvenir product in India, right? And that's why some of these banks raise at a much lower interest rate. And that's why the deposit is one way of sourcing that, right? Even if SBI does at 5.5, 6.5, they'll still get a lot of deposits.
So just because SBI has a brand and distribution, they are just choosing to offer lesser interest rates.
Yes, and honestly, from the business point, it makes sense. sense, for some of the newer banks which are coming onto the platform, they offer this kind of lucrative
More
interest
lucrative.
Correct.
interest rates.
Great. So let's move on from this, right? Like we've already spoken about how FDs and golds both have been there in all generations before like our generation
Yeah.
in their top of their mind. Right? It's the de facto asset. But over the last 10, 12 years, that's also changed with the younger generation. Most people in their, let's say, most millennials, folks who are in their 30s, would by default always tell you that I want to invest in an index fund or a mutual fund. And for that matter, there are now more and more asset classes coming. Like, for example, a lot of people have started to invest in crypto, although small amounts, but have started to put them in. So there are these alternate asset classes that are coming. Do you think this is a longer term trend? Do you think it's going to be there, or do you think we'll just mean revert back to people putting in money in gold and FDs?
So my point of view here is that, very interestingly, people forget every 5-6 years that there is a recession that comes every 5-6 years, right? And see, what has happened in the last 4 or 5 years is, with a lot of fintechs who are coming, a lot of awareness about stocks and the way Indian economy has been growing. Mutual funds and stocks have delivered great results, right? And I remember when we were looking at the Navi mutual fund numbers, there were 2.5 crore retail investors in mutual fund.
Yes.
And it was expected to go 10 crore retail investors in 10 years. But surprisingly, in just next 2 years, this 2.5 became 5 crores.
Correct.
Like, so the rate at which this scale is happening has been amazing. What has happened in the last 5-6 years, where a lot of these retail customers who got into the stock market mutual fund realized that it's not a one-way street always, right? And there has to be a portfolio allocation that needs to happen.
Correct.
In the last couple of years. And if you're very interested, and whatever he also mentioned, right, Manthan, ये लोग कौन है? This is very important to understand. These are, and the people like us are first time rich people who parents से बहुत पैसा है नहीं.
Correct.
We have started earning by ourselves. We are first time rich, not rich, but first time rich compared to our parents.
Correct. Basically, where our parents had very different problems.
Yes.
Where like actual sustenance was an issue, right? Like the traditional Indian middle class care.
तो वो हम में काफी ingrained है. So we are also by default are not the people who will put all our money in the riskier assets.
Correct.
Right? So whenever such things happen, we go back to our roots and try and see कि यार, how do you not lose this money? And there has to be a good portfolio allocation. And with that context in mind, I think I realized कि ये होना बहुत जरूरी है. And that's why I believe it'll keep resetting. And see, equities and mutual fund will grow and will definitely grow at a faster pace.
Correct.
But the sheer mass of golds and FD that I see that already exist for a DNA like India, I think that will also grow. Like even FDs is showing a growth rate in the customers and number of FDs at 12%, right? Nobody talks about it is because थोड़ा सा उसको glamorize नहीं किया in the last couple of years, and people are saying कि don't do FDs, and for some cases it's the right reason as well. But I believe this will keep resetting and it will keep coming back. And if you also see the regulators in India, right, they don't want the investors to lose their money, and they will always refrain from protect your money should lie in the safer assets as well. So I believe businesses like Gullak and Stable Money, which are offering FDs and gold, will be here to say. Now, how do we solve genuine problems for the customers is the most important thing.
Got it. Understood.
And so just to add to his point, right, it is very important to understand why is the risk appetite low, right?
Correct.
Somebody who is saving 20,000 a month, people who have access capital, they don't understand that when you are saving only 20,000, you are much more careful that I don't lose this 20,000, right? And that's where that fear comes, right? Whoever has access money, tech folks have access money, so we are like, okay, kuch risk le liya, nahi bhi chala to bhi, it's okay, right? So that is ingrained, I would say. Now coming to some numbers, right? What we've seen is, every year 5 lakh crore gold is bought by Indian household, 2.7 lakh crore by middle income household less than 10 lakhs, 2 to 10 lakhs.
Yeah.
Okay, this is 2.7 lakh crore. Talking about more digital assets, right? SGB, ETF, digital gold, collectively, I think adds about 15 to 20,000 crore every year,
Got it.
and that number is growing, right? So I
एक
don't
ऑर्डर
see
ऑफ
that.
मैग्नीट्यूड का डिफरेंस है यार दोनों में, लाइक एक ऑर्डर ऑफ मैग्नीट्यूड का डिफरेंस है
Yes,
सीधा.
yes. But that is growing. I'm saying the ETF last year versus this year, SGB last year versus this year, digital gold last year versus this year, right? You will see that number is growing.
Correct.
So I think because innate वो risk वाला issue तो है, right?
Correct.
So and that's why I think, and like he said, right, portfolio allocation is also very important. So what I think for us it was that we are seeing that the trend is not declining for sure, right? Because unless it reaches to the mass of the next 10 crore Indians and everybody is fully digitally adopted, risk capability बढ़ गई है,
Correct.
उसके बाद हो सकता है. अभी तो I am not seeing that trend. But at the same time, our goal was कि उसमें भी differentiation create कर दो. तुम enter भी कैसे होंगे?
Correct. You will have to have some differentiation.
So अपन ने वो कर दिया. We said that okay, extra 5% कर दो तो at least लोगों के दिमाग से ये भी निकल जाए कि निफ्टी को भी बीट करता है तो वो सब हैक्स तो लोग करेंगे. But without that also these are the numbers.
Correct. So Nitin from uni is an angel in both of you guys, and we had Nitin over here a few episodes back, and he had actually a very interesting take on this when we spoke about it. His argument was that as any country matures, there are more and more people who have surplus, who tend to have more and more surplus income, and as you have more and more surplus income, you do tend to increase your allocation to more and more like alternate or riskier assets.
Your risk appetite increases.
Basically risk appetite increases for the same setup because you've parked aside something for saving as an emergency fund and the rest you just want to grow. So do you guys also think that that's the trend with which India is growing? Like, will that grow or will it just stabilize to some range?
No, it will happen for sure. But you have to see that who are you talking to?
Correct.
If you're talking to the top 1%, 100%. Maybe if you're talking to top 5%, 100%. See, 500 million Indians are in working class.
Correct.
100 million are people maybe like us. 200 million is like very day-to-day daily wages. If there is a middle 200 million that all of us are talking about, that TG will not do this for the next 5, 10, 20 years. It's the next generation of those 200 million customer who will get into this.
Correct.
So for top 1%, I 100% agree. And see, larger pool of capital lies there.
Correct.
Right? But the larger impact is here.
Yeah.
Right. So
because you want that base to become reliable, self-reliant, so that they can get access to more and more financial services.
Yeah, and I'm sure the goal for stable money, I'm sure for Gullak as well, is how do you start building the trust like a bank, like our parents had, for these 200 million customers, so that the next generation of these 200 million will trust us by default.
Correct.
Right. So that's what we want to do.
And I think in the top 1%, like you said, right? I think people are realizing that portfolio allocation, right?
Yeah.
That 100 minus your age only can be in equity.
Yeah.
My age is 33. Logically, 35% of my portfolio should be in gold FD kind of instruments.
Yeah.
Right? Because I think that for even top 1%, for example, I am sure stable money also has a lot of users.
Yeah.
I am a user, right? Lot of users who are top 1%.
Right.
But their allocation of the 15, 20, 30% of their wealth is still going there.
No, and the most important thing is this top 1% always has somebody to guide them.
Correct.
Right? They have a relationship manager, they have a wealth advisor, they have friends who are into this, right?
Correct.
We have easy access to sit against, like, on the table and say ki boss chalo how to do this. But for this 200 million, that is not there. But what has happened interestingly in last 4-5 years is they have all the information that is required because thanks to all
Digital
the influencers,
100%.
right? That they know all of this. Now, how to do that? What is the best way to do that? And what are some of the nuances? It's still very difficult to explain in a short video, right?
Yeah.
What are some of the nuances? That's where I think this will play a significant role.
Correct. Great. So, sorry, let's go deeper into FD and then we'll go much more deeper into gold as well. Let's start from the basics. How does the interest rate, what causes the interest rate of an FD to be higher or lower? Like we've seen that, let's say 3-4 years ago, the typical interest rate that a bank would give out would be 4.5%, 5%. Best case, you would get 6-7%. But now you are seeing banks that are giving 8.5%, 9%, right? So what changed in 3 to 4 years for this interest rate to go up. So and we can use that as the base question, but let's go deeper to understand what causes what are the components of the interest rate of the FD.
So I think let's understand who is ensuring the interest rate. The RBI is the entity who is ensuring the interest rate.
Correct.
The monetary policies that they have, right? RBI has. The only goal that they have is to have a check on the interest rate. And that's why they are repo rate, reverse repo rate kind of thing, right? The rate at which they are lending the money, the rate at which they are borrowing the money. They give the money to banks, and then banks eventually give the money to all of us. So that repo rate defines the interest rates in future.
Correct.
Now the important thing is they have to keep the inflation and growth in check. And for this to happen, the only source is how much liquidity exists in the market.
Correct.
Right? When the interest rates are very high, there are more people putting money into the deposit, less people taking loan. That's why the liquidity in the market is very less.
Correct.
The growth slows down, the inflation slows down. That's the situation we are in for the last maybe say year and a half, and we'll continue to do that for the next 1 year or so. At least. And after that, once there is the inflation is in check, more liquidity, they'll loosen out, the home loans will fall, the interest rates will fall, and people will take out that money and put more into the riskier assets or start spending a little more because the prices have also gone down. So that defines the interest rate at a macro level. But at a bank level, what defines the interest rate is how is their assets and liabilities are matching. Like for example, some of the banks are more inclined towards the short-term loans because that's their mandates, that's their TG, right? Correct. So they give generally a 6-month, 12-month, 18-month kind of a loan. There are other banks which give a mid-term loan, like 5 to 10 years kind of a loan for the bigger corporates. Right, that is generally at a lower interest rate. The short-term loan is generally at a higher interest rate, also upon the risk. So if I am a bank, I am giving a loan to an individual for a 12-15 months. My interest rate, let's say, is 15-16%. For example, big bank is giving to corporate for 5 to 10 years. My interest rate is 5-6%, 7%. Now, if I am giving so much interest rate, I can afford to take the deposit at a higher interest rate.
Yeah.
Right. And similarly for the bigger banks, we spoke about that. They can take the interest rate, they can take the deposit at a lower interest rate, plus they are also giving the loans at a lower interest rate. So the NIM, right, net interest margin, is still that delta. So they are generally giving the lower deposit. So broadly, this defines the interest rate, and that's why you will see that some of the NBFCs like Bajaj Finance, Shriram, which are generally completely focused on loan, which gives the consumer loan at a higher interest rate, will give a slightly higher rate for the deposits.
Correct.
Small finance banks slightly lower than that, and the very big banks will be even much lower than that. That's what broadly what are the contours of the interest rates are.
Even in this, there is a tenure thing as well, right?
Yeah.
Ki, very short term is low interest rate, then it peaks at let's say 2 to 3 years,
yes.
And then it either is stable over there or actually for much longer duration it's lesser.
Yeah.
Ye kyun hota hai?
Yeah, so that is to just match the assets and the liabilities.
Okay, so it
right?
just...
Yeah, so if I have more loans of 3 years, I need more deposits of that tenure.
Very interesting.
Right, so I will do that. There are some banks which are offering very high interest rate for short terms as well, because that's how their loan book is.
Correct.
Right, so it generally varies accordingly, but 3 year is a very sweet spot where average loan size is also average loan tenure is also around that. So 3 to 4 years is where you will see it maxes out.
Correct.
Is a simpler way of saying, like macro level for viewers, repo rate essentially means the rate at which a bank borrows from RBI.
Yes.
Correct.
That was 4%. So the rate was 6%. Simpler way. Now that became 6.5%. So that's why the rates are 7.5%.
Yeah.
Overall, high level.
Well, the main driver is the RBI.
Correct.
RBI.
And then
So
everything else
because bank is
nuance.
borrowing at a higher cost, they'll give also higher returns, right?
Correct.
Logically, because now that is their cost, which means from RBI also they are getting it 6.5%. So better to take from customers at 8.5 and then give further, right?
Correct.
There are two sources. For them, it's RBI and customers.
Correct.
Two sources from which they get capital, which they
then deploy for credit.
right?
But interestingly, what has happened is despite repo rate has not changed for the last few quarters, in the last few quarters, some of the big banks have dropped their interest rates because they have enough and more deposits already.
Correct.
So I don't want more deposits.
Yes.
Because mere paas enough hai. So I will now take it at a lower interest
There's that
rate.
fine balance that banks keep on playing for that balance sheet to be healthy. As
Yes.
such.
Yes.
Very interesting. So, stable money essentially acts as the distribution channel for most of these banks, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Are there any regulatory challenges that came in when you were trying to build this? Like, how did you? And that's one part of the question. And then the other part is, how did banks agree to do this? Why do they work with you? What were some of the difficulties that you had to onboard them for?
Yeah. See, regulatory wise, I think there are no specific challenges because FD as a product has been there in existence for such a long period.
Yeah.
So the rules have been defined very clearly for such products. Ki what can you say, what you can't say, what can you use, what you can't use. You can't use RBI logo.
Correct.
And what can you say. So वो सब चीजें बहुत clear है.
Yeah.
So in that ways, I think we didn't face any issues. Banks is a tricky part that how do you go and convince, and that's where the strategy of also reaching out to the small finance bank who are also equally hungry like us, where they say that okay, I also want to reach out, but I can't spend so much money in building the branches, right? So I need some digital distribution channel which can help us do this. So I think that was the one thing. Interestingly, as I said, right, the tech that these people have been building for the last couple of years was at the right place when the interest rates are also high. Correct. So I think a lot of serendipity happened for us to go live very quickly.
Let's compare FDs in India versus, let's say, FDs across some various other countries that have typically higher average incomes. The FD savings rate in India is much, much higher. Do you have any insights as to why is it higher in India? Why is it lower in other countries? Or is that just because how, as a country, we've grown and developed?
No, so that plays a significant role in terms of how, as an overall country, is been growing. But if you look at emerging countries like India, I think there is been a significant portion of savings and deposit, and it'll grow at a slower rate maybe eventually as we go from emerging countries to the very developed countries. But what has happened is even in the developed countries, it goes from the savings accounts and deposit because the rates start falling to a lot of debt market instruments. Correct. Right? So in the US...
So go from bonds, FDs to bonds.
Bonds, right? So FDs to bonds, FDs to more monetary product, liquid products that exist into the market because they don't give higher interest rates on the savings and FD. So it will start moving there. It will go in that directions as well. The rate at which the bond market is growing, right? It's almost $1.3 trillion is the bond market that is expected to go double than this. So, yeah.
Cool. Let's move to now gold. Okay. Of course, physical gold is very common. We touched upon a bit that you wanted to start distributing digital gold because it's easier to sachetize, easier to distribute. And you also added that there is gold that's present in the back, right? So can you talk about how all of this works? Like, how does digital gold work?
So digital gold, in one line, right? I say digital gold is a physical gold stored in a secure locker.
Yeah.
That's it, right? It's essentially a physical gold. It's stored in someone's locker that is 100% insured, right? Third party. So the entities that distribute digital gold, they set up a third party entities who will ensure that the gold is secured and insured and right amount of gold is being saved every day, is going in, going out, all that is insured, right? So digital gold, essentially the whole engine behind works like this.
Do you think that all the large ticket will continue to be in physical gold, and is digital gold primarily for the small investments, or do you think this will change? Maybe you can give some examples with how you see your users behaving.
So what we are realizing is, one, to macro level, it is important to understand that in India has, like I said, 5 lakh crore gold is the consumption, right? 80% is jewelry.
Yeah.
Right? That is the main part. Other 20%.
By the way, also most of this is wedding shopping?
Wedding shopping. Or just Marwari saving for their... So one interesting fact is Indian households own gold worth 150 lakh crore.
It's more
than World Bank reserve.
Indian households have more money than the World Bank reserve. Have more gold than the World Bank reserve.
Yes. So I think bigger ticket size, what we are seeing is the serious investors. I think ticket size is mattering on that part, right? More serious investors, wherever they park money, they are going to park serious amount of money.
Correct.
So what we are seeing in SGB, ETF, digital gold also, depending on the product. Let's say our product is more, people are coming for higher returns and all that. So they
Manthan,
come with a
actually,
hedge.
can you help us understand what is the difference between, let's say, like physical gold? Of course, everyone understands. So digital gold, gold ETF, SGB. फर्क क्या है तीनों में? Like how and if let's say someone is wanting to invest in gold, नाम तीनों के नाम में तो gold ही है, तो why should someone choose one over the other over the other?
So चारों को समझते हैं, right?
correct.
In fact, the fourth is physical gold.
Correct.
ज्वेलर की दुकान में जाके सिक्का लिया, that is physical gold.
Correct.
Right? Digital gold is exactly same. There is no change.
Correct.
It's just that it is in a secure locker. That's
Correct.
it. ETF and SGB are more paper gold.
Okay.
Right? They are not. ETF is backed. I think they keep some gold
Some
as a
reserves.
security. But essentially, what you are buying, well, let's say when I buy an ETF, gold ETF, I don't get a gold. If I want to deliver the gold at
Correct.
home.
It's not a physical
Whereas
delivery gold.
in digital or physical, you can get the gold delivery. In our app, to improve trust, from day one we enabled gold delivery because that's where people build trust. एक बार घर पे सोने का सिक्का देखते हैं, उसके बाद ही trust आता है, right? And we are adding more things on jewelry and all that. So ETF and SGB are similar. It's more paper, right?
Okay.
अब ETF में you invest, you buy a unit. So I bought, let's say 1 gram is example, 1 gram is 1 unit, let's say, to simplify.
Yeah.
So I buy number of units and that stays those units and I can sell those units at any point. They somehow, behind ETF, they back it with physical gold.
Correct.
Otherwise they can't give returns and all that. But I can't convert that to physical gold.
Correct.
That's why it doesn't have components like GST and all that also.
So should I say that physical and digital gold are more to store and keep, but an ETF is more to trade?
ETF is more to trade. These are more consumption plus investment. Both depends, right? I think
like the perspective, this is investment long term, while the ETF would typically be more for people who are just looking for the upside over a short period. Is that the way you should think of it?
Yeah.
So then
I think very clearly ETF तुम्हें करना है. So not SGB.
Correct.
ETF, for short term trading, the only good option out of all this is ETF.
Correct.
करना है कर दो short term के लिए, you get some gain, you get out.
Correct.
Here you can't do that because physical gold है 3% GST, SGB है, lock in है.
Correct.
Right? So ये सब है.
But SGBs are also like traded in the bond markets, right? So what's the difference between an SGB and an ETF? Or how should someone think of an SGB versus an ETF?
So I'll tell you the background, right? I think what is government's goal? Government का goal है कि gold import कम करना.
Interesting.
ठीक है?
Okay.
कैसे करोगे? ठीक है, क्योंकि India is a crazy consumption of gold. Like I said, right? 800 ton is the fresh gold that comes into market. 250 tons is reusable. Like people sell their gold and again that gold goes into the market and distribution. अब कम कैसे करेंगे? They said people have that affinity towards gold. उनको हम कुछ extra return देते हैं.
Correct.
ठीक है, थोड़ा return देते हैं तो वो जो हमें gold import भी नहीं करना पड़ेगा बाहर से और वो जो demand है वो अंदर से meet हो जाएगी.
Correct. So SGBs are not backed by real gold, but the returns are promised by the government. That's like a very principal difference in the two.
Yes. And goal is कि government का goal है कि import कम करना.
Correct.
The whole deficit and all that उसमें नहीं जाते, right?
Correct.
So SGB essentially as an instrument में क्या है कि you can invest, you get 2.5% cash return for the entire 8 years.
Correct.
On simple interest. What simple interest means is आपने 1 लाख रुपए डाला, जितना भी लिया,
2,500 मिलेगा.
तो 2,500 मिलेगा वो पहले साल भी 8वें साल भी, right?
Correct.
And that is ensured by government.
Correct.
Right? So that is there. And second, there is a lock-in period of 8 years if you want the tax benefit. Right? तुमने अगर पूरा 8 साल रख दिया तो तुम्हें tax benefit मिलता है. Otherwise, like you said, it's traded, but there is no tax benefit. Then it's similar.
And basically, if you would want to trade it, you would rather just invest in an ETF, right? So there is no additional benefit. But if you really want to get the additional returns plus have this mindset कि okay, it's an investment, but I want to liquidate it, then the SGB is a good product for someone to put in money.
Also, SGB doesn't have so much liquidity versus what ETF has because the goal is trading.
Correct.
So SGB में even if you can sell, इतना liquidity नहीं होगा.
Slippage वगैरह ज़्यादा होगा तो as a result you
होता
can't.
है, I think 6-7% सस्ते में भी मिलता है अगर कोई खरीद रहा है. Because finally it's a buyer and seller market. If that particular unit nobody is ready to buy, you will have to sell it cheaper so that the demand is met.
Correct.
So I think वो सब रहता है. SGB में भी buy sell, उसको हम लोग buy sell difference बोलते हैं. वो SGB में भी रहता है.
Correct. Of course, we said that like this insane amount of gold gets bought, and most of it is wedding, and it's also like Diwali, Dhanteras season, and so on and so forth, right? So, is gold cyclical? Like we know that physical gold is kind of cyclical, where there are, and I shouldn't say cyclical because there is these periods when there is insane buying and then everything is flat. Do you see the same in digital gold as well? Do people perceive digital gold like that?
So, gold consumption, digital or physical, there are two peak days in the year.
Yeah.
Akshay Tritiya and Dhanteras.
Yeah.
Just to give you a fact, we talk about this declining trend and all that, right? This year, Dhanteras, 27,000 crore worth of gold was bought.
Okay.
Last year, that figure was around 21,000. ठीक है. So, in fact, we did our highest day that day, 6 crore.
Okay,
right?
so you guys also see some spikes like
So
this.
मैं बोल रहा हूँ. So those 2 days there are spikes. Otherwise, I think it's cyclical and not only in digital. Otherwise, it's generally normal, right?
Yeah.
Why? Because in physical also, we should assume that not everybody buys at their will. Next year wedding है अभी खरीद लो. People save. My dad has a habit के every year 1 gram, every month 1 gram कैसे भी करके खरीदना है. That is his strategy.
My kid is 5 months old. And the grandparents have been like putting in aside छोटा already. They're like कि बच्चा बड़ा होगा 18 साल का होगा तो उनको हम उसको गोल्ड देंगे. बोला भाई 5 महीने का बच्चा है. उसको ऐसे बड़ा तो हो जाता है थोड़ा.
Believe the
Edul is saving cryptos में.
हाँ, I am by the way. Yeah.
I will tell you, it's not even, the habit is very, one thing that we found in user research is, ये जो देना है ना उनको, that strategy is 15 तोला 20 तोला गोल्ड इकट्ठा करके देना है. सो 15 साल 20 साल में एवरी मंथ 1 ग्राम, साल में 1 तोला,
करेक्ट,
15-20 तोला इकट्ठा करके दे देना है. दैट इज देयर सेफ्टी. एंड सी गोल्ड इज वेरी लिक्विड, राइट? तुम्हें अगर तुमने ज्वेलरी भी बना दी तो तुम्हें लोन चाहिए तो भी इट्स यू गो एनीवेयर, यू इंस्टेंटली गेट ऑल दैट थिंग बिकॉज ऑफ दैट इनहेरेंट ट्रस्ट इन आवर कंट्री, राइट? अपने पेरेंट्स एंड ऑल दैट, एंड दे हैव सीन द वैल्यू ऑफ, सबको यही याद है यार गोल्ड कब 2000 था और कब 60,000 हो गया, इसकी बातें ही चलती रहती
हैं. एक थोड़ा जस्ट टू इंटरजेक्ट, आई एक्चुअली वांट टू अंडरस्टैंड when you let's say of course you buy gold, it's always promised कि you will, when you come we will be able to buy it back and so on and so forth by most of these jewelers. But what's the arbitrage spread over there? When you go to sell the gold that you have, do you get at fair market value? Is it significantly lower? होता क्या है वहाँ?
So I think there is a gap of 2-3%. So the logic is this. Today morning, I sell a Maggi worth 10 rupees.
Correct.
ठीक है? In the evening, you come and say, take it back. If I take it at 10 rupees, I didn't make any money.
Correct.
ठीक है? So that is the spread.
Correct.
तो वो generally 2-3% रहता है.
Correct.
So वो क्योंकि unless I buy it at 9 rupees, example, then I'll be able to sell again at 10 rupees. Otherwise, वो trade में I didn't make anything.
Does the same happen for physical gold as well? Like this spread?
Any
like very similar range.
Any jeweler you go, there are two prices: buy price, sell price.
Yeah.
That's a concept. In fact, anywhere physical gold, this is a practice.
Correct.
But that spread is higher on platforms versus with jewelers.
Or is it the other way around?
Or is it the other way around?
नहीं, I think slightly higher maybe, but mostly it's same. I think every jeweler has that, उतना gap तो रखते हैं. So I think they split in the middle. जो price होती है 1.5% ऊपर किया, 1.5% नीचे किया. That's how they keep it.
हाँ, but most of these physical guys also add a making charge on top, right? Even for like simple things like coins. So is that's their main revenue driver, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. So all jewelers' revenue is making charges.
Correct.
They make about 5% in coins, about 15-20%, depending on jewelers obviously, but depending on 10 to 20% in jewelry.
Correct.
Right? So when we say physical gold and digital gold, एक difference ये है कि physical gold में you pay this making charges and all that, which is typically higher. So in Gullak also, if somebody wants to convert to digital gold, there is a making charge because वो finally gold को coin में बनाने
convert to physical gold, there is a making charge.
Coin बना के deliver करना है, there is delivery and making charges, but that is typically lower.
Sorry.
It's okay, we can continue.
But that number is typically lower. For example, 10 gram का coin है, तो making plus delivery is around 800 rupees.
All of this has been really interesting. But let's now think of a person who is just gotten into a job, has just started doing some savings, and let's say has the capacity to save 10, 20, 30,000, let's say, per month, and is wanting to build this corpus. How do you guys recommend a person like that to look at gold, FD, and the other instruments?
यार I didn't do that and I did a very bad job at this. But मुझे लगता है कि I think the first 6 months or 8 months of the entire money after giving all the gifts to your parents and your
Yeah.
girlfriends, save all of that money in a very safer assets like gold and FDs, right? Build that base so that you will never be worried about that, okay, my money is not growing, because other investments are generally a very long term investments.
Correct.
And you need to have patience. And I believe, at least for people like us and people who are first time rich, the main source of earning money in the initial years of career is through career, is not through investments. I think people just
100%.
miss that point कि मैं इससे पैसा बनाऊंगा.
Correct.
I think they have to focus more on that. I have seen so many of my mentees from college and all of that. They put so much focus on investments that they lose the whole career wala
Correct.
piece. So I think initial those 6-8 months or 1 year, 2 years, you focus on that, keep saving that money, and then start investing the portion of that.
Correct.
Reach, I think the formula that he was mentioning, right? Whatever is your age
100
should
minus
be 100 minus that.
Gajab thumb rule, yaar. Like the first time I'm hearing about it, it makes so much sense.
It makes so much sense. Your age should be the portfolio that should be in safe instruments, gold, FD, and all that. 100 minus age, you try equity, 5% you try crypto and all that also. But yeah.
So I believe you build a base and then start following the formula of doing the investment.
Very interesting thing my founder said. So I was doing, so by the way, one key learning is, I think our user base is also about 25 only. Initial, everybody goes to that phase that I will double the money.
Yeah.
I was also in
21
that
दिन में
phase.
पैसा double.
Penny stocks कर रहा हूँ, बहुत कुछ कर रहा हूँ. And my founder one day came and said, the amount of investment that you do in yourself will have much higher return than any investment that you are doing now. ये सब छोड़ दे. That time I realized and फिर मैं रोक लिया. Everybody makes that mistake. So 2-3 लाख की गलती होते ही, depending on scale.
You need to pay your fees to the market. Yeah. I think we were discussing this like in a separate video जो हमने किया था, and it was essentially the same. कि यार, first come in, build your cushion. Once that cushion is built, for the first 5-10 years, just invest in yourself, invest in the time so that you are able to grow that and compound that most, and then over time figure out where do you invest, how do you invest. So on that note, now that you guys are beyond that first 10 odd years, how does each of your portfolio look like? Like, where do you guys park your money in, percentage wise across the different assets?
So out of my portfolio, I think 25% will be in gold. I think 10% is in FD. That's my cushion.
Correct.
Right? Instantly, like emergency है मेरा.
Correct.
कुछ भी आया तो that cushion is there.
Yeah.
I think about 55-60% is equity, only mutual funds.
Correct.
Nothing else, right? And 5% is Bitcoin.
Woohoo.
5% you just said because Edul is sitting in the front.
Yeah. कहते बोलते हैं Bitcoin कौन खरीदेगा?
नहीं यार उतना risk लिया है.
Yeah.
Got it.
Understand.
Yeah. No, I think for me it's also similar. I have 35-40% in safer assets like FD and gold. I have 50-60%, some in stocks that I genuinely believe will do good, and rest all in index funds. Nothing else makes sense. I'll tell you one very interesting fact, and this is what we were doing research during Navi time. I realized Kotak released this, or some mutual fund released this, that the average return of that mutual fund was 12% over what X period. But the average return that an investor got who invested in that mutual fund was 8%. Because you always entry and exit at a wrong time.
Correct.
Oh,
Timing the market.
Exactly. So वो नहीं करना है. So index fund is the best strategy when you do some stocks if you genuinely believe that. And then I have some liquid cash which I am now put it into the liquid funds.
By the way, I've never bought a single stock in my life till date. It's so weird. Like I always have such strong opinions कि यार ये खरीद लेना चाहिए, but somehow I've never gotten into putting your money in buying a single.
See, because you are not doing this full time, right? If you are doing this full time, you can do research and you can do. After all the mistakes that I have made in my entire investing career, the one thing that is said, long term investment is the only way to create wealth. Don't have too much expectation. I don't think people aged below 25 are going to agree with me. But over time, you will realize 12 to 15% CAGR. There is no better way to create wealth other
वो
than
बोलते
that.
हैं ना, I think
Time in the
very
market.
very interesting point somebody said is money moves from impatient to patient.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's what should happen, right? Just be there for a long period of time. I don't think three of us, at least here, and maybe some of the viewers, are not that kind of people who will earn a lot of money and leave everything and just sit on that money and do something with that. Or we'll keep working.
Correct.
Right? So this is just to have that safer asset in whatever we do.
Great, boys. Time in the market more than time in the market.
100%.
So yeah, advice for people starting up. What is, like, both of you have gone through this cycle and journey and have your own learnings. What is advice for people starting up right now, wanting to build their companies?
Yeah, I have seen a lot of fancy beliefs people have, and I also had when I was doing the venture for the first time that, oh, it's a very glamorous role and you do so many things. But I think you have to see that you will hit a rock bottom very soon. You will suffer before it starts giving you some value, and you should be ready for that. I've seen a lot of people when they start suffering is when they realize, oh, this is not what I expected, right? People who see us in the office say that, oh, founder's role is such a great role, but that's not true, right? What goes behind is we know, and we are all ready for that and enjoy that. But I'm saying people should be aware that there will be suffering and you should be okay for that suffering. Then it'll start giving you value. If you think you will become a founder and in 6 months, 1 year, you will see a lot of value and learn from that and do something else, that won't happen. So have some patience, be ready for that suffering, and then it'll definitely give you a lot of value. I honestly, as a first time founder, I did the same mistake of not sticking to some of the basic things that we spoke, right? How do we run the business? How do we build the team and everything? I did not do that. For me, everything was what you read and what you see on the videos, right? This is what founder's life is, and I want to be that. And like, failed miserably.
I say
It's not sexy, guys.
It's not sexy. It's
say-
absolutely not sexy.
I say this. You have to be a little crazy. Then only you can start. Because it is very, 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 very hard. Right? So unless you are a little crazy, you won't be able to sustain that.
Got it.
In terms of advice, I would say, I think very key principle, if you just focus on that, figure out a way to create value for user. If you do that, I think, because when you start, right, you won't know everything, right? So all these learnings will come over time. But if you have a single anchor that I want to create value for users, I think there is no better principle which will drive you, and then everything else can fall in place.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Cool. Guys, we'll just do some short, quick, rapid fire just to get to know direct opinions. So let's start with something easy. Favorite books that you've read, you've gifted?
Hard things about hard things.
Beauty. Discussing the same thing with Raghu from Zolve also. And I think that's also a book that he suggested. Number one favorite book, I think one of the favorite books that I have. Manthan?
I tell everyone to read Psychology of Money.
Yeah.
उस बुक में खाली एक लाइन में उसका संक्षेप चाहिए तुम्हें, दैट इज जस्ट शट अप एंड डू लॉन्ग टर्म इन्वेस्टमेंट, खत्म, कुछ नहीं है.
Great book. TV shows, movies, anything that you really enjoyed over the last year?
Big Bang Theory. I think it has a very different, it has nothing to do with learnings. Not everything has to be about learning.
Yeah.
Like me and my wife, we enjoy sitting through it and just have conversation, keep it running in the background. That's what I enjoy. We don't watch anything else.
Yeah.
So I stopped watching series because if I start, I have to complete.
Yeah.
So I stopped, like last 2 years, I wouldn't have watched any series. Movies wise, last movie in theater was, I think, Oppenheimer. Last movie that we screened in office is Seabiscuit.
Okay.
Very interesting.
You guys do movie screenings in office?
Yeah. Weekends we do.
Nice.
So Seabiscuit is essentially about after Great Depression in US, everything was ruined. How one horse was able to create a hope for a lot of people. So it's like a failure. How do you come back?
Yeah.
It's a story of that. Very amazing. Highly recommend.
Sure, I'll see.
Yeah. So any purchase of, let's say, less than 10,000 that you did that has added a lot of meaning in your life?
Kindle.
Okay.
Yes, that was a good thing because there was a lot of travel, and carrying books was sometimes a little difficult
Like
for me.
somehow I've still not been able to make the switch. Like
Okay.
the physical book is, but yeah,
But I'll tell you the biggest point. Maybe it's not the convenience. It's also that if you can mark a lot of things on
Yeah.
Kindle, and then like I forget things very fast.
Yeah.
So after the book is completed, पूरे book में क्या था सारांश देखने के लिए,
हाँ.
just see through that notes, and for me that has been very
yeah, लगता है,
convenient.
लेना पड़ेगा.
But that comes top of my mind. Yes.
Yeah.
I was also not able to switch. Audible try किया था मैंने.
हाँ.
I tried, but there also what worked for me was book है, Audible भी चल रहा है, then it was a little bit easier. Okay, so one purchase, headphones, noise cancelling headphones. I think whenever I'm traveling, it is much easier to concentrate.
Yeah.
Technology. And
I think I would also add YouTube Premium.
Oh
bhai sahab, this is the best thing I've
purchased ever.
Yes. Forget about us.
Yes.
The highest value that I created in my mom's life is YouTube Premium.
Oh,
Yeah.
give her that. Like, you have that, na? 5 people you can.
I
give.
use family plan.
Same.
Oh my God,
nice.
my mom loves it.
देखो
My
सारे
mom
कामों
is
का
like
कैरावान और YouTube प्रीमियम like ads नहीं सुन रहे.
हाँ, वो फोन बंद हो गया तो भी चलते रहता है.
हाँ.
It's like she's so
My
happy.
mom, if I am not using it, she will remind me कि subscription खत्म तो हुआ है तो देख ले.
सही है. Great. And let's say if you could rent out the billboards on Silk Board for a day, one message that you would want to put on it.
Other than stable money.
Other than stable money.
Yeah.
I would put a quote or a statement which says that there is always something that you can do to improve your position today, right? Whatever good or a bad position you are in.
Yeah.
Maybe something that I'll put.
Okay. Manthan, you?
Strong opinions weakly held. Then only your learning happens.
Yeah. So folks, a lot of people have been talking about gold and FD apart from Manthan and Saurabh here. And some of that is true, some of that is wrong. Let's unpack a few reels that we've seen recently and talk about and just tell you whether that's right, that's wrong, or what's the person actually talking about.
करण जौहर की मूवी और मिर्जापुर वेब सीरीज में पैसे लगा सकते हो अगर ये तरीका जान लिया. मूवी और वेब सीरीज बनाने वाले प्रोडक्शन हाउसेस अपने कंटेंट का राइट ओटीटी प्लेटफॉर्म्स को बेचते हैं, बट ओटीटी पैसे लेता है 4 से 6 महीने के बाद. इस फ्यूचर पेमेंट को इमीडिएटली लेने के लिए प्रोडक्शन हाउसेस यूज करते हैं एक यूनिक तरीका. वो ओटीटी से पैसे कलेक्ट करने का राइट एक थर्ड पार्टी कंपनी को भेज देते हैं एट अ डिस्काउंट और बदले में 70 से 80% पेमेंट लेते हैं जो ऑलरेडी ओटीटी से मिलने वाली थी. ये थर्ड पार्टी कंपनी आपके और हमारे जैसे इन्वेस्टर से पैसा उठाती है 3 से 12 महीने तक के लिए. और जब ये ओटीटी प्लेटफॉर्म्स ये पैसा लौटाती है तो ये थर्ड पार्टी कंपनी अपने इन्वेस्टर्स को पैसा वापस करती है विद इंटरेस्ट जो 15 से 18% के बीच होता है. इस तरह की इन्वेस्टमेंट को हम ऑल्टरनेटिव इन्वेस्टमेंट भी कहते हैं और इससे रिलेटेड रिस्क एंड रिवॉर्ड हमने अपने कैप्शन में मेंशन किए हैं. So for many such information, follow House of Group.
Don't invest in such thing unless you have SRK in the movie.
मतलब ठीक है, I'm not going to make you do the pose, but for those who don't know, Saurabh is probably Shah Rukh Khan's biggest fan.
Yeah. I'm still missing out first day, first show of Donkey just because of you.
Yes, it's okay. It's okay. Thanks a lot. It's a huge sacrifice. Yeah. Manthan?
Essentially, they are talking about discount financing.
Yeah.
Movies to wrap कर दिया.
Right.
But yeah, discount financing, you should know what you are getting into. Then only, do proper research and then get into
Yeah,
it.
मतलब what I hate about this is that like they just spoke about returns to excite and they didn't talk about the risk.
Risk.
Like, of course there is a default risk. मतलब OTT वाले ने पैसा नहीं दिया तो पैसा चले जाएगा ना.
Yeah.
So like and that's my like general complaint that people just talk about returns on one side and not at all about the risk just to attract random folks. But yeah, actually interesting idea though. Having said that, it's bond ही है.
But that what sells on the reels.
Yeah.
Correct only.
कि 15-18%
Discount financing बोलोगे,
Discount financing
invoice
कोई खोलेगा भी
बोलेगा,
नहीं.
कोई खोलेगा नहीं.
जबकि-
But movies are better than FD बोल दोगे.
हाँ, तो लोग खोल भी
Click बेटी पर.
Clickbait bro.
ऐसा कैसे हो सकता है कि 8% की एफडी पे मुझे 8.25% रिटर्न मिले? मेरे चाचा का बैंक होगा? नहीं है। ये देखो जरा, 1 लाख रुपए की एफडी करी मैंने 8% पे 1 साल के लिए. तो रिटर्न कितना बनेगा? ऑब्वियसली 8,000 रुपए. क्योंकि ये एनुअल कंपाउंडिंग है, यानी पूरे 12 महीनों का इंटरेस्ट मुझे लास्ट में मिलेगा और जो पहला कंपाउंड इंटरेस्ट होगा वो अगले साल से मिलना स्टार्ट होगा. बट इसी एफडी को मैं एनुअल कंपाउंडिंग के बजाय क्वार्टरली कंपाउंडिंग पे चलाऊं तो यानी हर 3-3 महीने में इंटरेस्ट जुड़ता रहेगा और उसके ऊपर भी मुझे कंपाउंड इंटरेस्ट मिलना स्टार्ट हो जाएगा. तो मेरा रिटर्न बनेगा एक ही साल में 8,244 रुपए, मतलब 8.25%.
लेकिन बैंक क्वार्टरली कंपाउंडिंग क्यों करेगा?
क्योंकि आरबीआई का रूल है.
अरे लेकिन एफडी में तो 5-6% से ज्यादा इंटरेस्ट नहीं मिलता.
क्या बात कर रहा है? ये मैंने रियल एग्जांपल दिया था. एफडी के रेट्स अभी पीक पर हैं. इनफैक्ट ये देखो, उत्कर्ष बैंक एफडी पर 8.5% ऑफर कर रहा है जो क्वार्टरली कंपाउंड होकर अप टू 8.8% हो सकता है. वो भी आरबीआई की 5 लाख की गारंटी के साथ.
लेकिन मेरा दोस्त बैंक में अकाउंट ही नहीं है.
खुलवाने की जरूरत भी नहीं है. 200 रुपए चाहिए? पहले लेके होम पेज पर जाओ, डीपी के जस्ट नीचे लिंक्स है, उसको एक्सपैंड करो, स्टेबल मनी का लिंक मिलेगा, वहां पर जाओ, सारे बैंक्स की एफडी कंपेयर करके.
अबे ये तो तेरा वीडियो नहीं था.
Hey, this is done on purpose. I'm sure कि ये मेरा ही वीडियो दिखा के you wanted to take a view, but nicely explained. I think the most important thing that we wanted to uncover here is लोगों को interest rate दिखता है, and a lot of people, even I had this misconception before कि if I see 8.5%, 8.5% मिलता है, but it's quarterly compounding. So 8.5% on an FD is actually 8.77% in a year. So that was the myth, and there are many such myths about FD, but this was the basic one that we covered, and nicely done.
Yeah, nicely done.
In fact, for our platform also, we credit the gold grams every month, which essentially there is a concept that we created called auto lease, which they can again put it back.
Yeah.
So in a way, it's not actually 5%.
Like
If you see monthly compounding, it's actually more.
correct, basic compounding setup है ना, like just the fact that if you change the tenure, change the interest rate, you actually get much more.
बोलते ना, eighth wonder of the world is compounding.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So that I
If
think
only through some magic everybody understands compounding.
compounding. Yeah.
So all problems are solved.
There would be no arbitrage in life, man. ठीक है, let's move on.
पिछले कुछ महीनों में ईडी ने कई सारे एक्टर्स को इंक्वायरी के लिए बुलाया है। अब उसमें एक और नाम जुड़ गया है, प्रकाश राज का, जिन्हें 100 करोड़ रुपए की पॉन्जी स्कीम के मामले में इंक्वायरी के लिए बुलाया है। एक्चुअली हुआ ये कि प्रणव ज्वेलर्स नाम की एक कंपनी ने बहुत बेहतरीन स्कीम लाई कि अगर आपको कोई भी गहना खरीदना है तो 11 इंस्टॉलमेंट आपको पे करनी है। उन 11 में से आप बस 10 इंस्टॉलमेंट पे कीजिए, 11वीं इंस्टॉलमेंट हम कंपनी की तरफ से पे करेंगे और आपका जो गहना है वो आपको मिल जाएगा। साथ ही अगर आपके पास कोई पुराना गहना है तो वो आप हमें दे दीजिए, 1 साल बाद हम सेम वेट का गहना आपको नया बना कर देंगे बिना किसी फीस के। जिसके बाद लोगों ने बड़ी भीड़ लगाई और बहुत सारा गहना और इंस्टॉलमेंट्स प्रणव ज्वेलर्स को देना शुरू किया। जैसे जैसे 1 साल होते आया वैसे वैसे लोगों ने देखा कि प्रणव ज्वेलर्स का दुकान तो बंद दिख रहा है। लोगों ने कंप्लेंट फाइल की। कंप्लेंट करने के बाद पुलिस ने वहां जाकर चेक किया तो पता चला कि वहां पर बस चांदी पड़ी है, थोड़ी बहुत, गोल्ड तो कुछ भी नहीं है। और फिलहाल पुलिस प्रणव ज्वेलर्स के ओनर्स को ढूंढ रही है, लेकिन यहाँ पर लोगों का जो पैसा है मिलने के चांसेस फिलहाल बहुत कम लग रहे हैं। अब प्रकाश राज का नाम इसमें इसलिए आया क्योंकि वो ब्रांड एम्बेसडर थे प्रणव ज्वेलर्स के। अब इस तरह की जो स्कीम्स है ये लगभग हर सिटी में शुरू है।
Classic Ponzi.
Classic Ponzi. I like, though we laugh about it, but I feel very bad people who lost money. Recently, my parents who have been investing into a bank FD, and imagine we are running a FD platform, that bank got shut, right? And I was just waiting for the money to
RBI
get back.
insured?
RBI insured है, but
limit है ना?
they don't understand, right? कि how do you do this breakup? वो तो 35 साल से एक बैंक देखा हुआ है, तो they have been doing this. But I'm saying कि such kind of things, but yeah, it's very hard to educate, and people will learn only by doing mistakes.
I think as an ecosystem, right, if you don't focus on trust बनाने में बहुत टाइम लगता है, टूटने में 1 सेकंड लगती है।
Like what is interesting over here is that कि मतलब people talk about कि यार ऐसे क्रिप्टो वगैरह में scams होते हैं, but this is gold and it's FD, right? Like that just tells you कि यार scam is independent of asset class हो, तो मतलब there are always greedy people, always wanting to make money and prey upon people who are just slightly less greedier than them, wanting for some more money.
Yeah, be extremely careful.
Yeah.
No, but I think I very genuinely believe that our regulators do an amazing job.
Oh, yeah.
Amazing job.
In terms of now.
I think RBI has
curbing
killed
it.
it, like over the last
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
few years
From
or so.
beginning, from OTP
Yeah.
to, I remember the
Like-
stories.
Like people talk about it कि वो RBI is regressive and you know, but I think they've done a phenomenal
It's a
job.
perfect balance.
हाँ.
US invest in recovering money. Fraud हो जाता है, फिर recover करने में इन्होंने innovation बहुत कर
Correct.
दिया है। RBI right places पे, right जगह पे. I think one thing is very clear, and that belief is right also. They have to protect people's
That's their
interest.
job. That's
एंड इंडिया में ज़रूरत भी है, क्योंकि अवेयरनेस अभी इतने आफ्टर मे बी 25 years 30 years यू नेवर नो, बट अभी तो वो अवेयरनेस दे हैव टू बी द वन हु प्रोटेक्ट पीपल्स इंटरेस्ट. इनफैक्ट वी आर वर्किंग विद गोल्ड इंडस्ट्री एंटायर टू गेट रेगुलेशन से जितना क्लोज
Yeah.
आओ, इट्स ऑल बेस्ट ओनली.
सही है.
The truth about sovereign gold bonds exposed. Are sovereign gold bonds actually a good way to invest in gold? You are going to find out right now. So, the first ever sovereign gold bond to have been issued by the RBI in November 2015 will mature on 30th November. Back then, the issue price of a sovereign gold bond was 2,684 rupees per gram of gold. And today, its maturity price is 6,132 rupees per gram of gold. Now, that's an absolute return of 128% and an annualized return of 10.88%. But apart from that, that first sovereign gold bond issued gave an annual interest of 2.75%. So the total return offered by this actual SGB is 13.63% per year. Now let's say instead of a sovereign gold bond, you went ahead and bought gold jewelry or coins. In that case, making charges and GST would have eaten up at least 10% of your investment amount. And you also wouldn't have gotten the 2.75% annual interest. So your annual return on physical gold would have been between 8 to 9% before tax and around 7% after tax. On the other hand, the maturity amount from sovereign gold bonds is completely tax-free. Considering all these factors, the returns that you get on sovereign gold bonds will be at least 25 to 30% higher than if you invest in physical gold.
Manthan, gold expert.
Catchy headlines. Sovereign gold bonds exposed.
Yeah.
No, I think this we covered. I think makes perfect sense. I think whatever he said, apart from the exposed part,
Yeah.
everything else is true. The only correction is 10.8 to 13.75 ऐसे नहीं करना चाहिए. It's 2.75% simple interest. So 1 लाख जैसे we discussed, right? 1 लाख डाला है. So I think that average 2.75 over years will become little lesser, but बाकी सब सही है.
Yeah. No, SGB, I think my only question or worry always in SGB is because the numbers are so complicated, right? 8 years, annual interest, compound interest, this, that, return. Do people who really go and buy physical gold, unko ye chamkega kya? There has to be ways in which these people have to be taught. Because people like us who don't buy physical gold will buy SGB.
Correct.
But जो आज physical gold ले रहा है, वो SGB लेगा क्या? Is the question.
हाँ, I think वो एक challenge तो है ही. हाँ.
अरे सैम्पल साइज मतलब इफेक्टिवली सैम्पल साइज भी तो बहुत छोटा ही है ना.
छोटा
अभी
है.
लाइक इट्स लिटरली फर्स्ट SGB बाहर आया
It's
है.
getting expired, yeah.
Yeah, and
Their
it's
AUM
getting
is by the way 45,000 crore.
yeah, but of the first SGB
No,
till
overall,
date.
AUM.
Yeah, now I think till date yes, it's grown a lot. But hopefully this sample size bias does not affect people and people don't end up losing.
No.
In general, वैसे it's a better.
I think
investment.
makes sense. Yeah, yeah. I think physical gold, if you are converting jewelry, you have to assume that
It'll go.
you lose making charges and all that.
Yeah.
But the only counterpoint I have heard from Marwaris is this is the way to not break that ever.
Correct.
The once it's converted to jewelry, you never sell it. Otherwise, the first instance you need something, in a way, it's like lock them in.
Actually, बहुत ही interesting point भी है, right? कि we also talk about कि the only way to create wealth is long term. ये जो artificial barrier है कि break करोगे ही नहीं तो अपने आप ही wealth बन जाएगी. That's also
The
like
hardest thing to do, and I think all of us will realize,
Yeah.
is get people to stay long term.
Yeah.
Very, very, very hard. As a platform, you have to build trust. So at any point you can withdraw, you have to build products like that. But with that, people at any point, the sign, they don't set up emergency fund and they break these and...
यार तो actually थोड़ा interesting है. मतलब when we are digressing from the reel, but when should someone take out money? क्योंकि मतलब at the end of the day, what's the point of investing? मतलब
So तुम्हारा goal is depends on तुमने क्यों चालू किया. कि मान ले यार मेरे को घर लेना है.
तो लोग ऐसे सोचते हैं. People think about it as क्या ऐसा नहीं होता कि बस पैसे बनाओ बच्चों को
क्या
दे दो.
होता है मतलब सॉरी नावी के टाइम पे हमने जब रिसर्च किया था वी रियलाइज दैट people don't think of a goal and start investing. People start investing and let's say it reaches a point and now they see कि अच्छा 10 लाख बन गया है.
हाँ.
3 साल में बेटे का एजुकेशन है, 5 साल में बेटी की शादी. अब ये पैसा उसके लिए and then it becomes a goal. Towards the last few this.
Correct.
But initial investments happens like this.
So खेलते हैं try
So
करते
what
हैं.
our user research told us, where we were doing this is, it's not like people have goals in mind.
हाँ.
But back of the head, क्यों कर रहे हो आप savings?
Correct.
क्यों कर रहे हो investment? अरे भाई बेटे की शादी आ रही है,
Yeah.
एजुकेशन आ रहा है, कॉलेज का खर्चा आएगा. सो बैक ऑफ द माइंड दे हैव सम गोल. क्यों कर रहे हो? फिर ऐसे एलोकेट नहीं किया कि 20% इधर 30% ईयर ये. बैक ऑफ द माइंड इट्स देयर. सो व्हेन शुड समवन, सो व्हाट वी से इज, सी इफ इट्स एन एब्सोल्यूट इमरजेंसी, हॉस्पिटल आ गया, ये आ गया, and your emergency fund is also. So one first thing is everybody should create emergency fund.
Correct.
You should have a 6 to 12 months emergency fund for any kind of emergency, right? If that is also not covered, absolutely break anything you mind, because finally at urgency point, if you need money and it's not there, what is the point?
Yeah.
But otherwise, liquidate from assets which are more fixed in nature, assets which are more variable in nature.
Yeah.
You don't liquidate. Keep it as a last option.
Because you would want to.
Because वही है, तुम
want to
कौन से
know
period
how
में,
to
you
get it.
timing the market, right? Timing the market is the worst thing you can do. I have done that, guilty myself, but that's the biggest mistake. That's why index fund versus normal mutual fund. Why do people recommend index fund is because timing the market is gone. Nobody is timing the
Reduced.
market. No, gone, right?
No, then you are still susceptible to market cycles, right?
Market cycle. But anybody, let's say any company goes out of top 30, whichever
हाँ,
gets
correct.
replaced, they'll just replace.
मतलब you are not betting on a company, but you are still betting on the
Correct.
market.
So you are not relying on a fund manager's ability to time the market.
Correct. Agreed.
Which is very important because finally human nature है.
Yeah.
95% or I don't know the exact figure, fund managers can't beat index fund.
We made a long video about this, just explaining कि भाई
Why? Because it is
pointless.
human emotion. तुम
Yeah.
psychology of money पढ़ो, खत्म है, एक ही book चाहिए.
Psychology of money. सही है.
Don't invest in long-term fixed deposits. Welcome to day one of 100 days 100 financial wisdom. Example के लिए आप 10 लाख की FD बनाते हैं for 5 years at rate 7% interest per annum. तो आपका interest बनेगा around 70,000 rupees per year. Now what banks do is that they deduct TDS on the interest to earn. अब TDS कटा है तो आपको tax तो देना पड़ेगा. But the point here is interest आपको credit नहीं हुआ है. You just earned it. Still you are being asked to pay tax. अगर आप देखोगे तो 70,000 rupees आपको 21,000 rupees tax देना है तो आपको अभी तक credit भी नहीं हुआ है. And this also brings down your effective interest to 4.9% only. आप point समझे ना? Interest आपको 5 साल बाद मिलेगा लेकिन taxes आपको पहले साल से ही पे करना है. So the better alternative here is since आपका already long term का horizon है so you go for mutual funds. Long term gains में सिर्फ 10% का tax है और वो भी जब आप उसको redeem करोगे. And by tax harvesting you can save taxes there as well. It's a win-win situation. You beat inflation, there is no tax burden and you earn more returns. तो अगर long term FDs में invest करने का सोच रहे हो तो please ये point को consider कर लेना.
Sorry.
Long-term fixed deposit plus which tax bracket you come, there are a lot of nuances. Not doing long-term fixed deposit is not the right word. But I also believe that you should not invest all of your capital in long-term. Because there is not only the tax wala point that he mentioned, there is a reinvestment risk also happens, right? Your entire money gets matured at 5 years and at that point in time, us time pe agar interest rate kam hai, you will reinvest and then you are going at a low interest rate.
Correct.
That's where we suggest you do FD laddering. You invest 30% in, let's say, 1 year FD, 30% in 3 year FD, 30% in 5 year FD, or in some combination of that.
So you have some maturity.
So first, you keep getting liquidity, and then the reinvestment risk also reduces.
Yeah. Excellent. By the way, earlier you said that some people also should not invest in FD. तो मैंने वो point लिख रखा था. But who should not be doing FD or should everyone be doing FD? Did I just hear that wrong?
Some people should not be doing FD. I believe that people who, what percentage of FDs is what they do is very important.
हाँ.
So, like, it should keep varying. That
Yeah.
you should not put all your monies in FD. I think today is also not that good time in Indian markets to put completely everything in FDs. So keep low amount or high amount depending upon the risk appetite.
All right, cool. Great, guys. It's been really fun doing this with you. Learned a lot, and I hope the audience learned a lot as well. Thanks a lot for coming over.
We had a
Thanks
great
so
time.
much.